the time, a relatively small private equity firm called the Blackstone Group. This is the point where you're going to see deal flow activity really pick up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Raw Selection Private Equity Podcast. Joining us today is Chris Parisi, partner at Karl Marx Advisors, an investment bank in which Chris focuses on the middle market. Today, we're going to be diving into the M&A market and the outlook around it, but also how private equity firms can better engage with owners and founders of businesses to best position themselves to be able to acquire those organizations and not having to pay the top price. So let's jump into it. Welcome to the Private Equity Podcast, Chris. Chris, as is customary on the podcast, if you could give us a 60 to 90 second breakdown of you, please.
Alex, thanks for having me on the show today. So a little bit about my background. I've been working in the finance industry here in New York for about 30 years. I actually studied accounting at the undergrad level and came out and started my career at Ernst Young. And pretty quickly realized I wasn't going to be a great accountant, but I thought I could make better use of my skills on the finance and the investment banking side, but I actually left E&Y and went to go work for, at the time, a relatively small private equity firm called the Blackstone Group. And that was in the mid-90s. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but they weren't that big then. I worked in the real estate group, and I was working on the first fund that was 337 million. And your listeners will probably know that by today's standards, that sounds like a very, very small fund when we've got the 10, 12, $15 billion funds today. After Blackstone, I left and went back to business school at Northwestern, got an MBA, and since then I have been working in middle market investment banking. Most notably, I spent a bunch of years at Jefferies, and about 4 years ago, I came here to Karl Marx Advisors to head up their M&A practice. And what we do here at Karl Marx is lower middle market to middle market M&A, primarily focused on family-owned, privately held businesses. So that's been the last 4 years, and it's gone great. And so that brings us to today.
Today on the Private Equity Podcast, perfect. What mistake do you see private equity firms or portfolio companies making? What actions would you suggest to correct them?
So, I just mentioned that here at Karl Marx, we primarily focus on family-owned businesses, privately held businesses, entrepreneurs, things like that. We don't sell portfolio companies out of private equity funds. So, when you're dealing with the family-owned business, they're not quite as tidied up. They don't quite have the bow on them that some of the portfolio companies would have. There's always going to be some issue, right, that needs a little bit more attention. Customer concentration is one that we see a lot. And the mistake that I see private equity firms do is, sometimes they follow their playbook a little bit too closely. In the case of a customer concentration issue, for example, they'll kind of have that hard cutoff at 20%. And if it's, a great company with 21%, they say, well, we just can't do that. And, I would say in most cases, that's a mistake because, yes, you've gotten, a risk issue there, but you've also got a tremendous management team in most cases. You probably, in most cases, a better management team than you'll find in other instances. So they've grown the business, they've bootstrapped it. Again, we don't work with companies that have institutional capital behind them. So if you're doing $100 million in sales and you're doing $20 million of EBITDA, and without any professional help, something has gone right. Now, to get to that level, sometimes they have taken on additional risk, maybe risks that they don't even that they haven't been able to identify. So the PE firms, I wish they would look at a risk like that and say, okay, I can understand it, and I'm going to work with this outstanding management team to continue to mitigate it, because the pluses are going to clearly outweigh the negatives, instead of just saying hard pass, can't deal with it. Because I believe, if you've got a great management team, you can work through a lot of those other issues. And most of the companies we work with have great management teams.
Okay, appreciate that insight. So obviously being an investment banker, you get an interesting outlook on the M&A world. What are you seeing, or what's your prediction for the outlook for the M&A space for 2022? I'll do that bit again. What is the outlook for M&A for the middle market for 2024?
Yeah, Alex, it's a good question, and I hear a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of people in the last year or so talk about the challenge of interest rates. And from where I sit and my experience, it's not interest rates that have been the challenge. I think I mentioned I started working in private equity in the mid-90s. And we've dealt with interest rates at these levels aren't even historically high, right? Plenty of deals have always gotten done at these interest rates. So it's, to me, the challenge recently more has been on visibility of earnings. And I think what happened, during COVID is you had a lot of, one, you had a pause, and then you had a pull forward, and then you had supply chain challenges. So we kind of whipsawed back and forth a little bit. And I think we're right at the tail end of inventory levels, which had been inflated, being normalized, which I think is going to give companies a lot greater visibility into their earnings. And once you've got, a comfort with where earnings are going to be over the next 12 months, 24 months, interest rate levels are just something you price into your deal. So I don't think that pauses or dampens deal activity. So when I look at the inventory levels normalizing now, and I see earnings becoming more predictable, this is the point where you're going to see deal flow activity really pick up. So I think the second half of 24 into 25 is going to be very, very robust.
So if we see inventory driving and changes, and a lot of companies made mistakes in COVID of increasing their inventory and now trying to get rid of it, what other factors are you seeing that are making you bullish with regards to the M&A market for 2024?
So when I'm going to stick on the inventory for a second, right? Now that inventory levels are being drawn down to a normalized level, and I should also mention the logistics side of our economy also having adequate capacity now. You're going to see companies start to say, okay, I need to order more, all right? I need to manufacture more. Downstream, customers are going to be saying, okay, I need to now get into a more regular cycle of ordering, because I'm no longer drawing down levels. I'm getting into that more regular cadence of order, ship, sell, order, ship, sell, right? So once everyone starts to see a little bit more of that natural cadence, that's where you're going to see earnings beginning to accelerate and stabilize. And from the private equity side, they like predictability. So if you can factor in an interest rate, and you can factor in something of a predictable set of cash flows, that's going to give them confidence, right? I kind of want, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier about, a customer concentration issue. Private equity firms, they want to have confidence above everything else. So, once they gain confidence, that's when they start writing checks.
Absolutely. And if we look back at the market and we look back at what's just played out, what we saw a very shallow M&A deal market for 2023. What do you think was the cause of that we can take from, and that, if in future downturns, we can therefore go, right, this is likely to happen? What do you think caused that?
Yeah, so I think, when we were in the market with companies in 21, right? And you had these companies that, they had been doing, 10, $11 million of EBITDA, for instance. And then, all of a sudden, because of the supply chain crunch, their customers were saying, you just need to produce product for us at any cost. Okay, we'll do that. And, so our clients had pricing power, and all of a sudden 10, 11, 12 of EBITDA turns into 15, 16. And everything, looks great, and, earnings are going up, sales are going up. And then we get into deals and the brakes get hit, right? And all of a sudden, the month over month, year over year comparisons start to slip. And it starts to dawn on everybody, okay, this was the pull forward. And now we don't know where we are, okay? So are we going back to 10 or 11? Are we going back to 6 or 7? And then working, so it was really, it's kind of like buying toilet paper during COVID. Everyone panicked, everyone hoarded, and then, now you've got a closet full of, 3 years worth of toilet paper. So that's a little bit what happened. And, it's precipitated by, for 30, 40 years, we've been, touting the virtues of just-in-time inventory. And we've been very focused on the lowest cost of product from overseas. Well, when you are reducing your inventory levels because of just-in-time, and the product you're getting is going to be on a boat for 6 weeks before it gets to your shore, when everything is going great, it's great. But what happened during the pandemic, right, is everyone got hit in the face with just, what a fine line we're all walking all the time with that type of infrastructure setup. So, so in 23, we were still, working through, what is our new reality. So I think people paused to continue to try to figure it out. And like I said, so now into 24, we have greater visibility, but this is going to be something that takes a couple of years, even up to a decade to fully figure out, because, now the supply chains as they're established are normalized, but they're going to continue to change because there's going to be more reshoring, there's going to be more nearshoring, and with geopolitical risks being heightened, some of the supply chain, some of the manufacturing is not just a matter of dollars and cents, it's a matter of national security. So you're going to see certain products, microchips as an example, that you're going to see more plants here than overseas because of, again, not just dependency on supply chains, but also as a national security issue.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick mention of our long-standing partnership with Grata. As you will probably know, the private equity scene is constantly evolving, and deal flow is moving now to proprietary and data-driven processes. Grata provides you with the data and information of over 7 million private companies. So if you're looking to improve your proprietary deal flow and improve the data access, then reach out to Grata today. Now back to the podcast. So you looking at the back to the market today, are you seeing an increased number of firms touting themselves at the moment? Is there more confidence from a founder, owner perspective to bring their businesses to market for the mid-market space?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last 6 months, we've probably had more conversations than we've had in the previous 2 years combined. And we've got a lot of deals that we are just signing up, just bringing into market. So the activity, I would say probably since about October is markedly different than what we've seen the last couple of years. And I think there's also a little bit of fatigue from sellers in that we've been told since probably the second half of 21 of this looming recession, right? And everyone has been kind of bracing for the recession. Well, here we are in Q1 of 24, and we haven't had the recession. And a recession only lasts 6 or 9 months. We've been waiting for the recession 2 or 3 times longer than the recession would have actually lasted, right? So there's a little bit of fatigue saying, okay, I can't wait for this recession forever. Let's just get back out there. And again, I'll go back to our clientele, that family-owned business, an entrepreneur. Lots of times it's somebody who is in their 60s or 70s, and they don't necessarily have the luxury of trying to time the market. Their decision to sell is as much life event driven as it is market driven. So they all get to a point where they say, you know what, I'm not getting any younger. I have other things I want to do with my time here. So I can't wait another 3 or 4 years to try to top the market. I'm going to approach the market now, and it'll be what it's going to be. And then I'm going to move on with the other things that I'd like to do.
Aside from money and valuations of businesses, private equity firms are in processes and to gain interest from first-time private equity, potential first-time private equity-owned businesses. What are the key caveats aside from valuation that founders and owners look for to pass their baby on to private equity?
Yeah.
Or to any seller, purchaser, sorry.
It's a great question, Alex, and it's something that we pay very close attention to with our clients because, I'll give a caricature of our client. It's somebody who started a business 20, 30 years ago as a job. Okay, they didn't start the business with the hopes of one day selling it for $100 million, right? These are salt of the earth people, and they started with 2 or 3 people that turned into 10, that turned into 100. And lots of times, they're driving a 15-year-old car. They still live in the house that they bought when they didn't have more than 2 nickels to rub together. So these people are driven by a lot more than money. They value fairness. So when it comes down to money, they want fairness. But the business is lots of times their identity. A lot of times they're the largest business in town. So if they have 100 employees, these people have been with them for 20, 25 years. They have picnics together. They see each other in the pews at church on Sunday or at synagogue. So they're really, as much family as they are employees. And when they move on from the company, all those employees don't get the big check like they did. They stay behind and continue to work with the company. So our clients really look to, who's going to be a good partner, who's going to be a good steward of that company, because our clients will most likely take less money, if it comes down to it, to ensure that the employees are taken care of, that the employees have a future, that that next level of management that has enabled the founder to be so successful gets their shot at equity participation, gets their shot at growing the company, and hopefully gets their shot at having a monetization event one day. So, that cultural fit and that plan for growth, the plan for the employees, that's really, really important to a lot of our clients.
And how does a private equity firm engage better with an owner or a founder to put themselves in that? Because anybody could say that they're in it for this, they're in it for that, and private equity firms no doubt would do that, as any acquirer would. But what have you seen, maybe examples, you don't need to name names of PE firms, but that have engaged particularly well? How have they done that? What have they done that's put them in the forefront, even if their valuation of the business isn't the highest?
Well, I think it's two things. One, we give all of our private equity buyers lots of chances to interface with the sellers. And the ones who are really interested in learning about the founders, learning about the employees, asking the right questions, the process of buying a company, it takes months. And the private equity firms who can exhibit patience, and all of them want to dive into the numbers, right? And they're entitled to do that. The ones who do that right out of the gate, it comes across as cold, and there's plenty of time. So the ones who have a little bit more confidence, a little bit more patience to say, you know what, I'm going to get to that eventually, but I'm going to establish a relationship first. Those are the ones who do well. And then the second thing is, you kind of just alluded to, any private equity fund can say whatever they want, and you're right about that. What they can't do is they can't fake their experiences. So we want references from past owners who have sold to those companies. We want to be able to have those conversations unfiltered. We want to have conversations with the ones where it worked out phenomenally well. We also want to have conversations with the ones that, it's been okay. And, to the extent that there's been any duds, we'd like to hear from that, from them too. So you can get a real sense of how people got treated when you talk to them sort of, away from the private equity fund, and past is prologue, right? So that's pretty important for our clients.
So certainly firms being able to being transparent with the deals that they've done, but also demonstrating their track record, demonstrating how they've interacted with those particular firms that they've acquired, and demonstrating that obviously what they say they do, they actually do.
Yeah. And listen, if a deal goes well, everyone makes money, but it can't be a zero-sum game. You can't get in bed with somebody who wants to grab that last nickel on either side. Everyone, the people who do the best with our clients are, the people who want to do very, very well, but don't need to grab that last nickel from everybody else.
I think it was Charlie Munger that has that approach to business of ensuring, or had the approach to business, unfortunately. And it was like everybody wins in the deal, everybody gets their share. And
That's right.
even if it means he takes a little bit less. It's all about everybody winning, and I think that's the definitely the right approach to take.
There could be worse examples to live by than Charlie Munger, right?
Absolutely. Not only am I the host of the Private Equity Podcast, I'm also the founder and managing partner of Raw Selection. Raw Selection's an executive search firm working exclusively within the private equity industry, supporting the portfolio companies and the private equity firms with securing exceptional talent with our motto of de-risking executive search. What are your influences, Chris? What do you read? What do you watch? What do you listen to? You would recommend that others check out?
So, when I think about, influences and who I read, I like people who are always in search of the truth, right? And if you're always in search of the truth, you've probably wound up at some point pissing off most people, right? So, and I don't want to be, political about this, but if at any one time you've been loved by a certain amount of people and despised by the other, and then at another point in time that's flip-flopped, to me, that's somebody I want to read. I want to hear their logic, because to me, that's somebody who hasn't pandered and is just in search of the truth, not their truth or somebody else's truth, the truth. I read a lot of Steven Pinker, because I think he's very much concerned with how logic works and how people work, and he's not worried about how someone might react to what he's investigating and what he's finding. I've just finished reading Elon Musk's biography, and again, I mean, Elon, I know he's a controversial guy, but he's somebody who he has been beloved by different groups of people at different times, and he's not afraid to be controversial, because I think he's in search of something that really transcends any sort of ideologies. So if people are committed to logic and truth and are not afraid of pissing people off, that's somebody I want to read.
Yeah, I've just ordered I've just received the Elon Musk book, so that's on my to-do list. I'm reading a book at the moment that you'll know, of Stephen Schwarzman, which is ironic when I was reading the part about him and when he started Blackstone, with everything going through, and stood outside MIT and trying to raise capital and realizing that they'd all gone home, and they stood out in the rain and couldn't get a cab. So yeah, interesting, certainly interesting story. How does anybody get in touch with you, Chris, if they wish to do so?
They can email me directly. So it's cparisi@karlmarx.com. Our website, karlmarxadvisors.com, has my bio and a V card, so they can go there. But I'm always looking to help business owners and private business people. So I'm not too hard to find if they need help.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing all your insights into the M&A world. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Alex, thanks so much. This is great, and appreciate what you do for the community. So thank you for having me on, and look forward to talking again soon.
Pleasure is certainly all ours, Chris. And as always, thank you very much for everybody listening, for joining us on the podcast. Should you ever need private equity professional hiring or portfolio executive hiring, please do reach out to us at Raw Selection. We operate across Europe and North America. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the podcast that comes out every single week. But till the next time, keep smashing it, and thank you very much for listening.